Yes. Oh, good evening. Good evening. Good evening, Dorli Moore. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen from Poland and Austria, or from Austria and Poland. We start the first session of 2022 Slow Guide Wine Seminars, and we start with Carnuntum and Erste Lagen. And on my left or on my right, I'm not never sure, but let me introduce Dorli Moore, the most influential influencer in the world of wine in Austria, or perhaps in whole Central Europe, or yeah, in the world, let's say, other world. Dorli, Dorli is yours, and good evening.
Hello, everybody. I got the red face with your compliments. I don't think that it's right, but it's nice to hear it. Thank you so much. I'll give you just a short introduction, a theoretical introduction to our region, some numbers, and some of the newest um, trends and decisions that we have taken in our region, so that you maybe can understand and evaluate the wines a little bit that better later on when we are tasting them. So just for you to explain that we have an association of growers in the region of Carnuntum that is called the Rubin Carnuntum Weingüter, Rubin Carnuntum producers. Rubin is a stone that you probably know with a beautiful dark color. So this should represent a bit that Carnuntum is really famous for intense red wines. And the whole region, all the Rubin Carnuntum producers have joined the Traditionsweingüter Association, that is, as you know, the association that is classifying the vineyards. So I think we are the only region that has joined as a total um, the classification of vineyards. So it is not just some producers, but it's the whole region altogether. And I think it this shows very clearly that we have a very democratic and inclusive regime in Carnuntum. Where does it come from? Just short, brief history background. The name of Carnuntum, of course, is a Roman word, but the origin is probably already Celtic, as carni existed already in the Celtic language that was not written, apparently, and it did say something like stone. Actually, the material Vindobona, so the old antique Vienna was made of bricks from Carnuntum. So that was probably the famous part of Carnuntum before, and it was later on when we were invaded by the Romans. They used the existing name and made a Roman ending to it. So this is when Carnuntum, the name of Carnuntum, appeared. And can we have the next slide, maybe? And so this was in the very first century. It started as a military camp to protect the Roman Empire at the Danube. But from there, the place developed to a very, very important city in the Roman Empire, and it had in the first, second century around 70,000 inhabitants. It was the same size as London and Paris at the time. So this was really an important city, and many, many important decisions have been taken there. Unfortunately, maybe we can continue to the next slide. Um, Unfortunately, when the Roman Empire disappeared, also this important city of Carnuntum disappeared. Nowadays, it is again a village with like 300 inhabitants. So not everything in life is growth. There is also the contrary. Um, but we have kept the name not just for this village, but for the whole region. You will see a little bit later where it goes from to. And we have also kept the name for our association, the Carnuntum Estates. Please, can we have, yes. This is just, I don't want to quote all this. You will have the presentation later on, and you can see it then. This is just to show that we are a quite tiny region. You see, all of Austria has more than 40,000 hectares. Carnuntum has less than 1,000 hectares of vineyards. We are a really tiny place, and all the producers know each other, and we are a very strong association working very well together. This is maybe, well, it's an advantage and a disadvantage. The disadvantage of being small is that you are not, maybe not as important as other regions, but the tininess is a good thing if you really want to work together. Can we have the next slide, please? Yes. Here you can see that the region of Carnuntum stretches between Vienna and Bratislava, south of the Danube and north of the Leitha River. And the Leitha River is the border between Lower Austria and Burgenland. So Carnuntum is part of Lower Austria, Niederösterreich, though we are very often like positioned in thoughts, at least, to Burgenland, because we have a very strong red wine focus, as you know, and this is usually associated with Burgenland. The climate is very similar with some differences. So climate-wise, we are probably closer to Burgenland than to Wachau or Kamptal. Can we go on, please? Yes. This is where we are located in Lower Austria. Next slide, please. Important, very important, is that we are really positioned between the Alps and the Carpathians. So you can see it on the right side, a nice drawing that shows that in the old times, Alps and Carpathian Mountains were one chain, one big mountain chain. 20 million years ago, this connection broke down and it was filled up with sea. So this is why we have some very strong limestone soils. But even more important is that you can nicely imagine, if you see that scribble, that we are extremely wind exposed, because this is really the corridor where the wind can come between the two mountain chains. So that means we are a very dry region. We have always a lot of wind. We have very little problems with infections. And usually the wind comes from southeast and goes up then to the Danube River, from where it fights the Atlantic rains coming from the west. So maybe we can go further. Yeah. You see, in Carnuntum, we have several like hillsides, starting in the southwest. This is still a part of the Leiterberg that you know from Burgenland. So we have the northwest parts of Leiterberg, which is at the moment not very important in terms of wine growing, but I think in the connection of global warming, it might become quite interesting. Then in the center of Carnuntum, you have the so-called Abestaler Hügelland with the villages of Götzlesbrunn, Höflein, and Abestal. And then to the very right, you have the vineyards at the slopes of the Hunsheimer Berge, which are part of Carpathians. Can we go on? Next slide, please. You see where we up one back, that we are positioned in the height, like let's say between Burgundy and Champagne, and you see that we have different influences coming from the four directions. And what that means, I will show you on the next 2 slides, please. Exactly. So we are really, really continental climate. You see, Carnuntum is the dark line, which means we are in summer nearly as hot as Bordeaux, even warmer in the last years, getting very, very hot, up to 40 degrees in for several weeks. But we have much colder winters, and due to the cool nights already, like from August on, the average temperature goes down considerably in autumn. So this means that during the most important weeks, when the last maturation takes place in the vineyards, we have nicely cold nights, even if the day temperature is quite high. And this explains a lot why in Carnuntum we have high mature wines, but still have this freshness and that slight cool touch that you will find in all the wines. And if we go to the next slide, this is even more impressive, I would say, because this shows when the precipitation, when the rainfall is taking place in continental climate, which is from mid of May until the beginning of July. We have heavy, heavy rains in that time of the year. So much rain that usually the soils can't keep it. But the rest of the year is quite dry, especially in autumn. We usually have a very long, dry autumn, and this combined with the cool nights and the warm days give wonderful conditions to very mature, very aromatic, but healthy grapes and not too high in alcohol. And you see in the two regions that are close to the sea, Tuscany and Bordeaux, usually the rains, the autumn rains, start in the beginning of autumn, and then they get more and more. So this is why they usually have quite a hurry in picking when the first rains start. Okay, can we go on? Yes. This is just to show that Carnuntum nowadays is still more or less half-half between white and red. But most of the white wines are consumed in the region itself because this is, you know, our famous Heurigen and the places where we stay and have parties and so on, which is mostly white wines, refreshing white wines, while the focus, the image, the reputation, and also most of the export wines are red wines. You see that in the red wines, we have a very strong part of Zweigelt, which is actually, it's at the 2020 is an important year for Zweigelt. It has been created, I would say, about 100 years ago. And also the Rubin Carnuntum Association has been founded around the grape of Zweigelt, and this has been 30 years ago. So we kind of celebrate a jubilee, a Zweigelt jubilee year this year. So Zweigelt is about 25% of the whole region, so it's very, very strong, followed by Blaufränkisch and then some other grapes. This is why when we talk a little bit later on DAC of Carnuntum, which is now like 3 years old, we have created our DAC rules more on a style than on pure varietal decisions. So if you want to make a white Carnuntum DAC, the wine must consist of 2/3 at least of Gruner Veltliner and Burgundy grapes like Chardonnay, Weißburgunder. And if you want to make a red Carnuntum, it must be 2/3 of either Zweigelt or Blaufränkisch or a mix of both. And the last third you can use in both red or white, other grapes, international grapes, or other autochthon grapes. Can we go on? Yes. So I think I don't need to explain to you our varietals, but those are the varietals for DAC. Exactly. No, it's okay. Thank you. Yeah, Zweigelt, you know, it's a crossing of Blaufränkisch and St. Lawrence, and we have quite some important numbers of monovarietal Zweigelt in Carnuntum, and we have created a working target group on how we can develop Zweigelt from a nice blend partner to very interesting, exciting monovarietal wines. And you will see this later on in the tasting, what we have succeeded in. Yes, you will see Zweigelt from Carnuntum is always different from Zweigelt in Burgenland. One of the reasons definitely is that we have these more dry, windy places, that we have more limestone soils, and we don't have any influence of Lake Neusiedl, which is usually the case in Burgenland, where they have more humidity in the air, which usually gives a higher um, sugar production in the grapes, and therefore more, I would say, more powerful wines. And the wines of Carnuntum and the Zweigelt of Carnuntum are always more on elegant side. Yeah. Yeah, this is maybe not another important thing, that we are quite strong in terms of getting sustainable, organic, or biodynamic. We have a very strong movement here in Austria, and even more in Carnuntum. So we believe that in the next 2 or 3 years, at least a third of all the vineyards of Carnuntum will be organic. Yes, that's what I said. We have created, as we work together a lot, we have created different working groups. We have created the joint brand of Rubin Carnuntum. We have created these Schwitzerberg working groups. We have single vineyard project created on Zweigelt. We have done a very intensive soil project together with the University of Geology. And then eventually in 2018, with all that know-how, both practical experiences and scientific know-how, we have joined the Traditionsweingüter, done our classification, and founded the Carnuntum DAC. And thank you, we can go on. Yeah, about well, maybe Rubin Carnuntum, as I said, it's this joint brand that we have founded already in '92. It's 100% Zweigelt, and our understanding of Rubin Carnuntum wine is that it's the best expression of the region, and it's a regional wine and DAC since 2019 as well. Yes. The next slide, yeah, about soil project, you can have a look on that later on when you get the presentation. I just want to, yes, go on, please. I just want to focus, next slide, sorry, on that exactly, that we have we have been fighting for many years, finding out how can Carnuntum create a DAC. You know that Weinviertel or Kamptal, Kremstal, they have founded it so much earlier because it was so clear that they should focus on Veltliner and Riesling. But for Carnuntum, it was really a battle because we had a big diversity of grapes. We have red and white. And more important maybe was the fact that once we decide which wines, which grapes can be called DAC Carnuntum, it also means that all the other grapes and all the other wines cannot be called Carnuntum anymore, but must be called Niederösterreich. And this was probably the biggest battle for us, because Niederösterreich, as you know, has this connotation of white wine, of Grüner Veltliner, of, the taste of Kamptal, of Weinviertel, of Wachau. And we are very different, as I said in the very beginning, we are very different with a different climate. And so that means if we decide, for example, that only Zweigelt can be called Carnuntum in future, that means that all the other red wines, for example, cannot be called Carnuntum anymore, but Niederösterreich. So this was a little bit tricky, and this is why it took us so long to define what is our DAC. But we found then the solution by doing another thing, and that would be the next slide. When we decided, okay, if we want to join the Traditionsweingüter, we have to define what are our best vineyards. And once we had a look on our best vineyards and we looked on what is planted there, it was quite clear what is the typical Carnuntum wine. So we created our DAC not from the bottom up, like in most other regions, but we created it from the top to bottom. That says all the wines, if it is regional wine, the village wines, or the single vineyard wines, they must be all DAC wines, and of course also the Erste Lagen. So then it was a very clear concept, and that's the thing that I have explained to you before. And I think that as it has taken so long for us to decide what should be the DAC Carnuntum, we had the advantage that we did not do the same mistakes as other regions have done, where, for example, the best producers are not integrated in the DAC, or the best wines are not integrated in the DAC. So we really did it all together in one big logical decision. And so wherever you find Carnuntum, it's DAC, it's the same style. And whenever you find an Erste Lage of Carnuntum, it is representing the region because it must be a DAC. We cannot bottle any Erste Lage wine if it is not a Carnuntum DAC. This was, I think, the most important theoretical introduction. As I said, thank you. You will receive, if you want to, the presentations afterwards, and you can go more into detail. And if you have any questions, you can always send us emails or, of course, ask them during our tasting. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dorli. That was really interesting. Tell me just one thing. Let's say, the relationship between DAC and Erste Lagen, it's more likely symbiosis, or this is, how is it?
Well, we understand, we have this understanding. If you make like the best wine of a region, and let's consider that an Erste Lage must be a best wine of a region, it must be typical for the region.
Okay.
It is not possible then that you say this is the best wine of the region, but it does not represent the region. It's not logic. So this is why it is not so much in symbiosis, but it's maybe as you have seen it on this scribble on the last page. It is just the top, but it is the same expression as the regional wine. It's the same expression, but maybe more focused, more in detail, more precise, even more shaped. But in principle, it should be the best representative of the region, but not a contrary to a regional wine.
Okay, good. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You come back to us. What time about is your concert, your mother? How long you can stay with us?
Sorry, I realized that the concert is only in 23, so I have time.
Oh, good. Okay. So stay with us. You're coming back. And now, yes, this is Christina Artner-Netzel. And hello, Christina. And just let me tell you one thing as a tradition, good tradition. I promised to myself not to make any more stupid jokes about using the crachoir, but well, last time, yes, use the crachoirs. The attendees in Poland, stay with us till the end. Do not forget to use this. Yeah. Christina, hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. So this is your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Piotr. What a honor to start the tasting with our wine today. So hi, I'm Christina from winery Netzel. We are located in the middle or in the heart of Carnuntum in the village called Göttlesbrunn. We are a family-run winery. Here you can see my father and me. So my father and my mother, they founded the winery based on a mixed farm, and they decided to focus absolutely on the wine production. So they grew the winery to what we are now. It's still family-run, so I'm working in the winery since 2007 together with them. We have around 30 hectares of vineyards surrounding Göttlesbrunn, the village of Göttlesbrunn, so it's all very close. And absolutely focusing on the Zweigelt grape. It is our main grape variety, our main production, and today you will taste the wine, which is a pure Zweigelt 2 from us. So we're family run, working organic. We're organic certified in the vineyards. Here you can see the vineyard where the wine is grown, which you're tasting today. It's a nice view of the main growing area around Göttlesbrunn here. So you're tasting the Zweigelt Heidacker from us today, which is, as mentioned, a pure Zweigelt, 100% Zweigelt wine. The Ried Heidacker is a very special place for us because my grandfather already started to plant Zweigelt there, so we still have one of our oldest Zweigelt vineyards there on the Heidacker, the Ried Heidacker. It is the soft ending of the hillside, so the hillside surrounding Göttlesbrunn is dominated by gravel. It's a gravelly hillside, but the Heidacker is not on the very top of the hillside. It is a little bit lower, so there you can find a little bit more nutritious soils. There is a less layer on top of it, mixed with some gravel coming from the hillside, and in the lower parts you have a very loamy soil conditions, very high clay content. So it is a very interesting place to have the Zweigelt there. You have a great combination of the warmer impacts coming from the southeast area, which Dolly perfectly explained at the beginning. So we have a great combination of warmer impacts coming from the Hungarian area or from the southeast area, in combination with the cooler winds coming from the river, from the big forest on top of the hillside. So you have the Zweigelt is somehow fostered in this area because it's warm, there's good nutrition, it is not too hot, it is not too stressy, and therefore the grapes are getting a very intense aromatic. They are the Zweigelt aromatic, which is sometimes explained as a cherry fruit driven aromatic, is here more tending to some darker berries. You will find some earthy aromas, some leafy aromas in there because the wines are pretty old, so the roots are very deep. They get this great nutritions, they get the minerality from the lower layers there. Of course, the yields are getting lower in this area because of the older wines and because of the conditions, because of the gravel on the top. And all in one, this is our most important and best Zweigelt vineyard we are growing, and therefore we are producing our single vineyard wine from this special place, from this special vineyard. And we do 100% hand harvest, of course, so we bring in the grapes to the cellar by hand in a perfect condition. There is again a selection in the cellar of the single berries. We focus during the vinification on the very low impact. So there is no pumping, no crushing, no damage of the berries in general, and bringing the berries to the wooden fermenters as the whole berries. It is natural fermentation, and we don't want to move or to rack the wine too much, so we bring them to the 500 liter vats after the pressing. There is no racking anymore. We keep it there for 18 months in the barrels, so 500 liter vats. It's not the barrique, it's a little bit bigger, to again focus on the elegance and the freshness of the Zweigelt, which is grown there in the vineyard. I think it represents that style of Zweigelt in Göttlersbrunn quite good, because you can feel the ripeness, but still the freshness, the great juicy fruit on the palate. There is some spice, some earthiness on the palate, and it is a very balanced wine and still very elegant and long-lasting on the palate.
Okay, thank you very much. And what about the price? Tell me.
Yeah, in the winery it's 27 euros. And our importer is Wojciech Wojtanowski, so it's Winoikielski. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it correctly.
Winoikielski is perfect, yes.
Okay.
It's almost perfect. He's with us, yeah, Wojciech Wojtanowski. Winoikielski from Opel, from Opole.
Opole, yeah.
Yeah, Opole. It's okay. Thank you very much, Christina.
Thank
you. Your stay with us as your husband will join us in a moment, practically. Yeah, good. Thank you very much. If any questions, folks, ask using the chat. And now we pass to the second wine, Michael Auer and Weingut Auer. And both Christina and Michael from the previous tasting, but the wines are of course different. Hi, hello.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah.
We can hear you. This is your time.
Yeah. My name is Michael Auer. I hope you can read it in a good way. I'm from the neighbor village next to Göttlersbrunn from Höflein. Some details to my person. This is me and my wife, Karina. We make the wines, and we do the winery since 2009 now. So it was like very typical for our region. It was a mixed agriculture farm, we can say, where my grandfather and my father worked before. And since 2009, I do it with my wife. Now we were focusing the last 10 years more and more on wine, of course, like the other region. And we have about 70%, 75% red wine now, and 25 white, a little bit 1-2% sweet wines. And what makes us especially, we work with the nature. We in the cellar we try to so less is more for us. So we try to reduce the wines very very low, and we want to we do mostly at the reds everything we do with spontaneously fermented, so with the natural yeast. We started since 2015 we don't crash the berries before the fermentation, so it's a little bit more a cooler fermentation and a longer fermentation if you don't crash them before the with the destemming, after the destemming machine. My wines are very powerful. I like to have a little bit more heavy wines with more character and more fruit also. We are always very careful with the wood barrels, so we do not too much. We have in this wine we show you now, we have about 50% new oak, and so I would say let's try the wine at first, and I will tell you some details. We have a wine from the single vineyard called Bühl in Hüflein. At first, I want to say this is not classified at the Erste Lage. So it's next to Ried Aubühl, which is our Erste Lagen wine. You will also taste from other producers later a wine from this single vineyard. But it doesn't say anything to his character. Of course, the wines from this vineyard are about 20 to 30 years old. We do the harvest here about at the end of September and at the beginning of October. We harvest always per hand in 500-liter boxes, and we to try to go very fast here at the picking when we come to the cellar. Of course, then later we do the destemming with machine and go directly in open mesh tanks with maximum 2,000 liters. The fermentation is about 2 to 3 weeks spontaneously, and after that we go in the barrels. For this wine we use only little barrels, so barricks with 225 liters. We leave this wine about 18 to 20 months there, and after that we do the blend from the different vineyards. We have at this single vineyard Bühl, we have about 7 separate vineyards where the wines are with different ages and also different clones. And this is always for me an interesting thing to taste it, because there are some wines which are very old from my grandfather and some new ones which I have planted. And after that we do this blend. Like I said before, you have a very dark color in this wine. It's very high scored, this wine. It was from Falstaff. It was the 4th best Zweigling of Austria at the last tasting. And try it and have some fun with this wine. If you have any questions, if you have any, if you want to know more details to this wine, please let me know. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And the price, as you according to the
the price of this wine is 1830 at our winery. Yes. We have an importer in Poland, but he do not have this wine in his portfolio.
Right. So this wine is unavailable. And who is your importer? The name?
His name is Piotr Karon. The company, I have to look exactly the name. I cannot explain it in now. Sorry.
Piotr is.
But maybe I can write it in the chat. I will search for the contact and write in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yes. But
thanks.
Thank you very much, Michael. Well, any comments? Beautiful color and nose. Yeah. Good. Thank you very much, and stay with us if the other comments come. Right. And now Philip Grassl and Weingut Grassl. Philip, hello. Philip Grassl. Yes. Hi. Good evening. You're muted, I'm afraid. I can't hear you. The microphone, the second. The other icon. Yes.
So it's
great.
better.
Yeah. Hello.
Good
to see you and hear you.
Little difficulties for the beginning. Yeah, so welcome also from my side. I'm here in Göttlersbrunn, which is quite the center of the western part, as you know from the introduction from Dolly. Myself, I grew up in a wine grower family. We're working with wines for decades right now. My grandfather, altogether, they bottled wine since the early 60s in the 20th century. And me myself, I got into the wine business in 1998, which was the first vintage I did with my parents on the winery. So I'm going to get to the 24th vintage in this year, and they changed a lot. So I started off as a whiz kid in the turning of the millennium, and there was a big red wine boom, and we started to make very powerful wines, very kind of new world wine style, because I was working in California after my school time in vintage 1997. But the thing is that it completely turned, because when the people started writing about the winery, starting writing about the wines, I was always mentioned as the new world wine guy, as down under in Göttlersbrunn and all those things. And I was asking myself, if this is the real thing I want to make wine, because um, as you know, Austria and especially Carnuntum, it's a very tiny production. So why should we compete with the big ones? And then at the beginning of the 2010s, we really got back to a really very native kind of wine styles. So we're working organic. We started to work with organic methods in 2016, and we are starting off in the first certified vintage in 2022. Of course, I mean, if you work really in high quality ranges, I think there's no alternative to working organic. And what we also do is that we practicing with the biodynamic preparation since 2019. I think it's a nice and complementary method. It's not an alternative, but I think it's really complementary, and you see that there is something happening in the vineyards. What exactly, I don't know, but the wines tend to be more focused, more shaped, and we're practicing on that. You saw the slides. If you get back two once, you see the vineyard. One back, please. This is the vineyard that we have in the glass right now. It's Schüttenberg. It's a certified Erste Lage, and it's kind of the biggest mountain in Göttlersbrunn. So it's 284 meters, and on the top left side, the last vineyard that you see next to the forest, this is a Zweig vineyard that we possess and we farm since 2006. The thing about Zweig is I always considered Zweig to be the red brother of Grüne Veltliner, because you can make easygoing, easy, nice wines for everyday drinking. But if you get the best vineyards, and you get low yields and all that stuff, and you work proper in the vineyards, you can get really high-end products. And for the Zweig, I think it's the same in red. So we started off to do Zweig in a monovarietal bottling, and the reason why we do it at the Schüttenberg is because it's, as I mentioned, it's the highest altitude, 280 meters, and you get the biggest amount of the Danube gravel on top. Because as you heard before, the whole region was flooded with the ancient sea sediments, and then it was covered with the gravel of the melting glaciers after the last ice ages. And on Schüttenberg, you have the biggest layer. Sometimes it looks like in Groß Hermitage, you have really, it's like stones, like fist, that really have a lot of chalky and limestone content. And this is why I think Zweig performs really well on top, because you get really, really ripe fruit. You get a lot of structure, a lot of tension, but it never gets that opulent, that sweet. So you see it from the analysis. It's after malolactic fermentation, it's almost 6 grams per liter of acidity. which preserves a lot of tension. So it starts off really dark period. You get a lot of earthy notes in it. It's always also very spicy. So I think it gets away from the fruit-driven, very supple and open wine style into a more introverted style, which also may, because as I mentioned, we don't use any kind of bacteria, enzymes, any kind of concentration, all that stuff. We just got completely rid of it. The only thing that you have in the bottle is the grapes and a small amount of sulfur, which is very important for us because we're working with the natural yeasts. So we do a small racking after malolactic fermentation, and then we keep it on the fine lees for all the 18 months. We use 500 liter tonneaus, because we want to keep the shape of the wine. We don't want to pump it up. We want to keep it very, very narrow and very tight and keep the tension, because this is the thing why I think Zweigelt can perform most, when you really keep the red line. We ferment it in wooden fermentation beds. We also don't crush anything. I don't have a crush because I'm working with the whole berries since 20 years right now. And
I'm
yes?
sorry, Philip. We have to speed up a little bit, as
Okay.
it's 6 minutes per winery. So.
Perfect. I'm sorry I'm too long. So yeah, 18 months in the small in the barrels, and since July 2021, it's in the bottle. So good for now. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you very much. And tell me the price level.
Price, it's 25 euros, and we are imported by Ars Vini in Wrocław.
By whom?
Ars Vini.
Ars Vini. Okay. Ars Vini in Wrocław. Okay.
Yes.
25 euro. Okay. Good. Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Victoria is your family? It's the same.
Her mother was my neighbor. So we're neighbor, but we're not related anymore.
Okay. Good. Perfect. Worth it. There's a comment. So 25 euro, but worth it. Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
All right. So
bye.
Thank you very much, Philip. And
thank
now,
you.
Bye. See you. Stay with us, please. And now, Victoria, please join us. We have to speed up, as if not, Dorley won't go to the concert at 11.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Victoria, hello.
Okay, I'm right. Hello, and a very warm welcome from my side. I'm Victoria Gotschuli-Grassl from the same named winery, and yes, I'm glad that you're all here to get an insight into the wine growing region of Carnuntum and our winery. Our winery is a family-owned business, as you can see on the photo. In the back, you can see my father. On the left, my mother and me. We are the owners of the winery, Michaela and Victoria. And on the right side, there is my husband. So our winery is family run for generations, and we have two locations. One in Höflein, it's the next village to Götlesbrunn, and because the reason for the two locations and the double name is because my mother comes from Götlesbrunn and took over the winery from her father, and in former times, it was the winery Grassl, and when she came to Höflein and married my father, there was this double name. So my mother was the one where the viticulture has its roots. So now we cultivate 15 hectares of vineyards, including white and red grape varieties. And yes, we cultivate both because the powerful less and calcareous soils offer ideal conditions for producing wines from a wide range of grape varieties. with a special focus of local reds and white wines. The wines are all cared mainly by hand the whole year, as well as the harvest, which takes place per hand, as in nearly all wineries here in the region. So here on this photo, you can see the Ried Aubühl, the vineyards from the one which we have in the glass. It's the warmest side in the Aberstaler Hills, and it is oriented southwest and situated at 220 meters above sea level. It has calcareous sandy-like loam soils that warm up very easily. And due to the cooling influences of the forest above, which you can see on the left side, there is the beginning of the Marielender Wald. Due to this coolness, the wines retain their freshness and spite, despite the hot soils and the warm climate. Here at Ried Aubühl, we only cultivate Zweigelt, which brings a very juicy red wine with soft tannins, I would say. So if we go more in detail to the wine, it was hand-picked at the 18th of September. It was fermented in steel tanks with regular pump overs and punch downs during the main fermentation. And it was macerated 24 days after fermentation and then aged for 16 months in oak barrels, in French oak barrels, partially in French oak barrels and partially in 500 liter barrels of 500 liter vats. So if we taste now the wine, I would say it has a great variety of aromas. So you can really in the nose you can smell the freshness, also the dark cherries, cinnamon, pepper, and if you take a sip, you will have some fine tannins, providing the wine with a solid structure, while I would say the finish is a little bit salty, promising. It has a real good mature potential, I would say 8 to 10 years. And I would say it reflects a little bit, so it's a balance between freshness and ripeness. And yes, that's also, this ripeness is also because in our region, our whole region has a very long vegetation period, and the grapes mature slowly, and we have approximately 2000 sunshine hours. So I would say it's a powerful and a wine with a high potential.
Wow, thank you, Victoria. This is really something. Yeah, lot of very light and pleasant, and lot of flowery scents. Yes, and I'm reading it on the chat. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And €23. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, my husband is making some jokes with my little daughter.
Husbands. Yeah.
Yes. Crazy.
I
husband.
can tell you a lot of stories about.
No. Yes. The ex-seller price. So price from the winery is €23.
Mm-hmm. and you have no importer in Poland.
We actually have no importer. No, we have some private importers. So they all come together and order a pallet of wine. But these are only private persons. We have no official importer.
No official importer. Good. Well, and thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's now it's about the baby. So we love the baby.
She took over the attention. Okay.
Good. Thank you very much, Victoria.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Stay with us, please. And now is Caroline. Caroline Tafferne. Caroline, hello. Hello. Yeah. Good evening. So you stole the show last time.
I did.
And yeah, and you had a lot of fans here in Poland.
Okay.
So yeah, go on. Now it's a different wine and different tasting.
Different wine, expectations are high. So for everyone, hi to Poland. I'm very happy to be here again. So for everybody that wasn't here at the last tasting, I will explain a little bit about me, about our winery. So on this picture, you can see my father. We run the winery since 2017 and together, but he only started in 1988. So the winery is still pretty young, and like all the other wineries in Göttlesbrunn, we used to be a farm, but decided after the wine scandal to try with wine. And my dad, he studied winemaking, and in 1988, we started to only run on wine. For myself, I only decided in 2014 to study enology in Vienna. And then I went for a vintage to Australia, and I did 2 vintages, 1 vintage in New Zealand, 2 vintages in Australia. And since 2017, I'm back in Austria. And yeah, we're family run, family operated. We have 25 hectares. So half of it is white, half of it is red. Our focus is on Austrian grape varieties, and number 1 grape variety is Zweigelt. And I also did bring a Zweigelt with me today, Ritt-Bärenreiser. It's also vintage 2019, like all the other wines that you tried so far. And I want to say a little bit about the vintage. 2019 was an exceptional vintage in Austria. So it just comes really close to the other amazing vintages like 2011 and 15, 17, and then 19. So I'm very happy to show you Ritt-Bärenreiser. 2019 was actually the first year that we started our organic work in the vineyard. We tried a few years before to start with organic work, but 2019 was the first year that we started our switch to organic. 2019 was also the year that we started our sustainable work. So we're sustainable certified since 2019. About the Ritt-Bärenreiser, maybe can I see the slide before that? Yes. Okay, so this is Ritt-Bärenreiser. Like I said, we have 25 hectares, and all of them are in the town of Göttlesbrunn, where we have the winery and we do the bottling. And we have 2 vineyards in the next town of Höflein, and both of them are on Ritt-Bärenreiser, which is Erste Lagen, a first site, a single vineyard. 15 years ago, we leased the first Ritt-Bärenreiser vineyard, because we tried it from other winemakers in the area and we were really impressed by the site. We didn't have a vineyard there, so 15 years ago we had the chance to lease one. So the first vineyard we leased was Zweigelt. And so a few years later we were able to lease another vineyard there. And in 2019 we crafted this vineyard to Blaufränkisch. So we had the first vintage 2021, and I'm really impressed by the Blaufränkisch on Ritt-Bärenreiser as well. It's still the first vintage, it's very young, it's in the barrel right now, but there is big potential that in the future Riedbeerenreiser will become a blend, but right now it's 100% monovarietal Zweigelt. The site itself is the eastern edge of the Danube gravel terrace. So on the upper slopes, we have a lot of gravelly soil. But all in all, the site is very clay and has a lot of limestone. It's a very hot site. The name Bärenreiser comes from the old German word Reisern, and that indicates the kind of plants that used to grow on this very, very hot site. It's a south-southern west located vineyard, and it's our hottest Zweigelt site. It's always the first Zweigelt, single vineyard Zweigelt that we harvest. In 2019, we harvested on 23rd of September. That's an average time. It's not very late. It's not very early, like 2018. It was almost 3 weeks earlier. So it was average time. It was handpicked. But still, even though the other first sites we harvested almost a week later, am I too slow? Is it okay? Because you're picking. Yeah, so it still has the highest graduation of sugar content. So Riedbeerenreiser has around 101 to 103 Öxle graduation. That's the 14.4 volume % alcohol in the wine. Part of it is maybe the raisin berries that we had in the last few years, that after some cold soak, they release a lot of sugar content. About the wine, in 2019, that was the first year that I really took over the wine production, especially for the single vineyards. And Riedbeerenreiser, I decided I want to work with whole bunches. So in 2019 was 30% whole bunches in open steel fermenters. So I have 2 small open steel fermenters where I put the grapes, 70% is destemmed and 30% I put whole bunches in between. And then, yeah, punch downs by hand, no pumping and no additions. Nothing is taken out, no juices taken out of the wine, no additions. And 18 months in big barrels, French barrels, mostly new, some used ones. And yeah, so I think the wine shows how powerful the site is, how hot the site is. It's very concentrated, deep in color, very fruity and complex, but at the same time, you can tell the limestone, and also working with the whole bunches and the stems gives it some complexity and structure, even though it's such a hot site and a hot vintage, but still it doesn't seem to be too jammy. It has a lot of body, and yeah, I hope you like it. I do have an importer. It's Vinoi Kiliszki in Opole. Yes,
Vinoi
and the wine
Kiliszki,
is
yes.
22 euros at the winery.
22 euros.
And I also think, like I read here, perfect for chocolate fondant. It has some dark chocolate notes, and it tastes almost sweet, even though it's completely dry. It has 1.0% of residual sugar. It has such a sweetness in the nose. But on the palate, it's still dry, but it's so, yeah, it reminds me a lot of dark chocolate and cherries.
Well, thank you very much. I received, for the first time in history, I received a WhatsApp during your speech asking for the price. So this wine
I can't hear you.
Yeah. You can't hear me?
Is it me? I can't hear you.
Well, I don't know. Now, do you hear me, folks? Now?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Okay. Caroline, thank you.
Hello?
Hello?
I'm
Hello?
sorry.
Now you hear me? But you see me at least. We can hear. Yeah, so they can hear. Yeah. Okay, Caroline, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Namaste.
I'm sorry I can't hear you, but if it's important, just write me.
Where's the dog?
Thank you
Where's
so much.
the dog? Okay, thank you. The last time, this time there's no dog. Thank you, Caroline. Very well. Thank you. And now, Dorley Moore, join us, please. Dorley Moore, hello? Yeah. Welcome
Hello.
back. Yeah.
Hello back. Yes, I'm moving now to the western part of Carnuntum, to the hillsides that are actually geologically part of the Carpathian Mountains. And can you please go away with my picture? Because yes, exactly. So all my vineyards are situated on the Spitzerberg, which is one of the hillsides of the Carpathians. Actually, it is the most western one. And all the vineyards on the Spitzerberg are oriented to the south. It's a long, about 240 to 280 meters high hill sides. And what you can see here is actually the place where the wine is grown that you can taste, that you have in front of you probably, which is one sub-vineyard of Spitzerberg. It's called Obere Roterd. So it's the upper part of Roterd, which is the part above the street that you can see in front of you. And you can see that the vineyards go up directly to the bushes, to the end of the vineyard area, and the part above it, which is dry grass and bushes. And this is a nature reserve, because the Spitzerberg, as it is so wind exposed, so dry, has a very special flora, and therefore also a very special fauna, which is really unique in Austria, and it can be found in some steppe regions in the more eastern part of the continent, but not any further in Austria or in the Alps. You can find similar vegetation probably in the Mediterranean, in the south of France, in very dry and hot places. And the Spitzerberg is very dry and hot. We have between 300 and 400 millimeters of rainfall only. And this is really focused, as I said in the very beginning, in late spring. And there we have heavy, heavy rains that will flood the streets and everything, and the soils can't take the water really. It is too much at a time. And then the rest of the year, it's very dry. This slope of the Spitzerberg used to be the shore of the sea like 20 million years ago, and this is why we have sandy limestone. So it is really like the beach. And the beach usually doesn't keep any humidity in the soil, and this is what's happening in our vineyards. They are very, very dry. And this is why we have extremely tiny yields. So last year, which was exceptionally low because of the weather conditions, I just calculated that my average was below 2,000 kilos per hectare. So it is really, really tiny, and extremely tiny berries because of this dry and very wind exposed hillside. Altogether, the vineyards around Prellenkirchen, which is the village at the foot of the Spitzerberg, are about 100, 120 hectares. And when I started to make wine there, so because I'm probably the oldest person in our tasting group today, but I'm the youngest producer. I started only 20 years ago, and at that time we had no definition of appellation. We had no understanding of any vineyard differences or terroir differences, and we started a working group together because I really wanted to understand better what is the uniqueness of the Spitzerberg. There were no very prestigious wines. It was mostly like daily consumption, but I had a feeling that it is something like a Grand Cru, and we have to develop it. So we started a working group, we started tasting, and we started to define that if we use the word Spitzerberg, it must be 100% Blaufränkisch, and it must be a wine that really translates and explains the soil where it comes from. So it's not enough to just be a full-bodied or big, impressive Blaufränkisch, but it must show that it is grown on limestone, and it must show that it is grown on the Spitzerberg. So we do this jury tasting every year, and we decide together in a blind tasting, is this wine reflecting the place where it comes from, or is it not? And if it is not, we agree that we don't use the word Spitzerberg for it. And later on, like 10 years later, we realized that it's not just the Spitzerberg is unique, but that we have sub-vineyards, around 10 different sub-vineyards that are very, very different in expression. You really can compare this differentiation to what you know from Burgundy, that you go 200 meters further or even 20 meters further, and there is a different expression of terroir. And this is what we have started eventually in 2019 with the vintage 2019 that you have in your glass now, that we eventually got the permission of the Ministry of Agriculture that we can use both the bigger name of Ried Spitzerberg and you can see it on the label in red, it's tinier, Obere Roterd. So we can both use the main vineyard, but also the tiny sub vineyard, which in my case is Obere Roterd. And so I do in 2019, I do 4 different sub vineyards of Ried Spitzerberg, and 2 of them are already bottled. 2 of them are still in barrel and will be bottled only in March. And I'm not sure whether this is in terms of marketing, distribution, sales, whatever, whether it makes sense or not. But I can't not doing it because it is so exciting to see those different personalities, and I have to divide it and I have to keep them separate and really see how they develop. Obere Roterd is, in my opinion, the most feminine part of Spitzerberg. It is pure limestone. It is very dry, very high, but it has in some places a tiny part of clay, I would say, in the soil, and this is what makes it so, I call it creamy, but not creamy in a fat way, but creamy in a silky way. And the longer it is in the bottle, the more I love it. And I have a very emotional relationship to that vineyard, of course, because this was the original vineyard that my grandmother owned. It was 0.17 hectares, and I was with my parents and my grandmother. I was often there, and I thought that's the wine of the world, and that's how the mountains look like. Much later, I realized that there's even higher mountains than 240 meters. But there is a very strong, family emotion feeling with that vineyard, and so I'm very happy that I could show this to you today. It is not yet on the Polish market because Robert Mleczynski still is with the 2018. which is a little bit different. It's not yet only Obere Roterd, it was a mix. And I look very much forward once you receive that wine in the market, because I think it's a big, big step from 2018 to 2019. And I'm very curious to see your opinion on it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dorli. Actually, yes, there was from Robert Mierzyński company a chat that the wine is being sold pretty fine, and but this is 2018, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you very much. The price in Austria roughly
is 42.
42.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you. That's but I check out. I'm older, so you're good. Thank you very much. And now we started Blaufränkisch just for you folks if you missed it. And now Robert Peyer and Weingut Peyer. Robert, are you with us? Hello? Yeah, he is. Still connecting. Connecting. Well, what can I say? What can I say about future tastings? Waiting for Robert. Future tasting. So, Robert, you're here. Hello.
Now you can hear me?
We can hear you. We can see you. So this is your time, and go.
Hello, Paul. Hello. My name is Robert Peyer from the winery Robert Peyer. It's a very old family winery. There's 40% from the 12 hectares is in the family business more than 200 years. And we produce 12 hectares. We have 30% of red wine and 30% of white wines. The focus is Blaufränkisch and Zweigelt, more Zweigelt than Blaufränkisch. And then the white wines is Grüner Veltliner and Chardonnay. So now we have the wine. Dolly speak a lot of the Spitzberg. We have the Spitzberg from the same region. Is also Spitzberg over a road area. So for me, it's very easy and I'm very fast. So Dolly tell a lot about the Spitzberg Blaufränkisch. We have a little bit different from the fermentation. We always handpicked the Blaufränkisch also and all the other ones. And we have food stamping of the Blaufränkisch over Rodert, and we have 3 weeks of fermentation. So there's only 1 punching per day. So we had a little bit more tannin. We like tannin, and we say the focus is for a long life. We have very good fruit in this wine. You can taste it. This is typical of the Rodert. We say Dolly before is very feminine, and so you can feel and taste it, the very nice freshness, the elegance, and the very nice mineralic of the acid. So what is not in my family? As you can see, my family winery. This is the house where we live in. There's also the winery inside. I'm in the 5 of the generation. So what can I say now about the wines? My English is not so good, so it's for me. It's not so easy for me. I'm a winemaker and not English speaker.
It's very good. It's very good.
yes. My vocabulary is here is very good, but it's very small. Yes. So the focus here in the Blaufränkisch near Perlenkirchen is we have only there a half hectare. We have 0.25 of Obere Rodert and 0.25 from Rich Spitzer, and the other winery, the 11 hectares, is in Höflein. This is the big. There's a lot of the vineyards. Sorry. And so here is also the focus. But the Spitzberg is, we like the freshness and we like this special Blaufränkisch. We have also Blaufränkisch in Höflein in some different single vineyards. We have also Erste Lage ÖTB with Rich Steinecker. There is a single vineyard with Weigel. This is Steinecker is the oldest, the coldest vineyard for red wines in Höflein. And then we have also lots of single vineyards with cuvées like Bühl. So now we go to focus return to the Rich Spitzberg Road at 2019. We see before this, what's so nice is the color is a little bit, it's not too dark in the color. It's a red color. You see it's a little bit violet of the side, and if you taste it and you smell it, it's a very nice dark, so reflecting the violets, and then you have very fine red berries in the fruit. It's like this is the fineness of the Spitzberg. And then if you taste it, have a fine, elegant tannin, and the acid is a good balance with the fruit, and so it's not so. That's what for me, my from the Spitzberg. So we win time for the other people. They can tell more about your winery, Pietro. You win a lot of time with me.
No. You were just frozen, and I wanted to say to tell you that you can cut off the camera if the connection is not good. But no, that was it's really fine wine. I really like it.
Thank you. And the price Exceller. The price Exceller in Austria it's 40.5. 40.5.
40.5 euro. Yeah.
Yes.
And you have no importer.
We had an importer, but this one, so the importer, I think, have not a good business with me now.
Okay.
So we look at a new importer, but this one is not in Poland now.
Not in Poland now.
No.
Poland now. Okay. Well, perhaps, some comments coming on the chat. Really nice one. Good job. And we love it.
Okay, thank you. So if you have some other questions, you can write me and I answer them. Yes? Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Robert. And stay with us. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And now Clemens Peltzmann and Weingut Peltzmann. Hello, Clemens. Yeah. Good evening.
Now it should work. Yeah. Hello from my side to everyone. Dolly and Robert talked very much about Spitzberg already, so I will introduce me and our winery a little bit more. We are a family-run business, and my father overtook the winery in 1949 with 2 hectares. And now I joined the winery after my graduation from school in 2017. And we grow from 2 hectares to 16 hectares now. So we had a big process of growing, and our vineyards grow from our home village, which is named Berg, directly on the border to Bratislava. We are growing from there to Rich Spitzberg, which is 7 kilometers per road away from our winery. This is how, so we grow very fast. In the cellar for Spitzberg we work close to the others, so we just destem 70% of the grapes and then stomp it with our feet, and that's it. So we work with natural yeasts, and so the fermentation is in very small batches, and it's very cool. That's why it lasts a little bit longer, but we don't stay too long on the skins, so that it don't have this lots of tannins, because it's a very filigrane and slight filigrane type of wine. Yeah, and we do 30%. We do a whole bunch fermentation, where we just put the whole grapes into like the similar 400-liter boxes, and then stamp it with the feet and just let it do its own job, if we want to say it like this. And after 2.5 weeks of maceration, the wine comes into the 225-liter barrique barrels and stays there for 16 months on the full yeast. So it has time to develop and has time to do even as the fermentation, as the alcoholic fermentation, the malolactic fermentation is done spontaneously. So it needs time, and in our cellar we don't have a climate control. So in the winter it's getting a little bit colder, and the wines rest during the winter. And in spring, when the temperature raises, the wine began again and do the job. So the maceration, the fermentation lasts very long, and the wines stay very long without sulfur in the barrels. So it's very low influenced, and can show his influence of the Spitzerberg and the terroir. Yeah, then after the 16 months, we keep the small batches. So from the 400 kilos of fermentation, it's every time 1 barrel, and we keep it everything separately till the last blend 2 months before the bottling, and so we can choose what fits us best, or what in our opinion is the best expression of Spitzerberg in this year.
Sorry for interrupting you. Tell me, the oak in the region, the oak for the barrels and barriques, is where from? It's the French.
It's French oak. It's French oak, but it's very long used barrique barrels. So it's not the second filling. It's like we use them for 10 to 15 years. So the influence of the oak is very, very low.
Mm. Okay.
And we mainly keep it in the small barrels, because we have lots of very small batches. So we can from the spontaneous fermentation, we can separate, and we can see what in our opinion is the best expression of it. And yeah, in the wine, you can smell as Dolly talked about, the dry grass. I think very often it's shown in the wine too, and it has some fruity notes and some flowery and herbal notes every year. So it's showing like violet every year. And if you take a sip on the pellet, you can feel or taste the freshness and the fruitiness of this wine, and it's underlined with a strong character, I think. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the wine, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Tell me the price.
The Exceller price in Austria is 22 euros.
22.
And at the moment we don't have a retailer in Poland.
Okay. Good. Perfect. Thank you, Clemens.
Thank you very much.
And well, stay in contact. Something very nicely balanced wine. Yeah, very nicely balanced. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay with us, please. And now, Mr. Peter Artner, so the husband of Christina. So that's the, yeah. Hello.
Dobry wieczór.
Dobry wieczór. Oh, this is perfect Polish.
I'm Peter Artner from the winery Artner. We are located in Höflein, Carnuntum since 1650. Our grandfather established our winery and our mixed farm in the 60-50, and we are mixed farm with pigs and cows, and my grandfather took always a little bit more to the wine, and my father is talking always he don't like to work with the animals, and he he joined us to be a winery and give the focus to the wines, and now we are only wine growing farm, local farm with by my father and my uncle and me. I took the work for the with the hands. My father is always working by his mouth, and my uncle Christoph is working in the office, and so we run our winery together, and our focus is always on wines. They are a little bit more fruity, well balanced, powerful, with good rich tannins, also aged, and yeah. This is our beautiful church in Höflein, where we're located, and we have about 70% of our 40 hectares are cultivated by red wines and 30 by whites. By the whites, sure, our most important variety is the Veltliner Chardonnay and a little bit of Weißburgunder and the Muscatella for some fresh wines, and red, our specialty is Zweigelt, Blaufränkisch, and a little famous hobby is Syrah and Cabernet Merlot, sure, the French varieties. And today we had the Ried Aubühl. It's the first Erste Lage, and it's a blend between Zweigelt Blaufränkisch and only 10% Merlot, because the Aubühl is very different. On the top of the hill, near the forest, there is a deep soil, a loamy soil with a little gravel into, and in the middle there get more and more sandy soils, and there are more water, and sure, for the forest give us more freshness, and so we designed in 2017 this plan for our best vineyards. And near the Aubühl we have also a Steinecker, which is only a Zweigelt, and the Kirchweingarten, which is only a Blaufränkisch. And so we want to speak only the vineyards. We do the vinification in the vineyard for each wine the same. Only the stemming fermented in naturally in 700 liter oak barrels, and after then spontaneous fermentation for the malactic, and one racking, and the second racking after 18 months to get in the stainless steel, and after 2 months to bottle. Yeah. So our importer was Piotr Canon. Yeah, I'm sorry, but he doesn't answer the phone. But yeah. So
Who
na
is your
zdrowie.
import? Na zdrowie. Na zdrowie. Thank you. And who is your importer? Piotr?
Our importer was Piotr Canon, but he doesn't took the phone when we call him.
Anyway, this is Piotr. That's good. Piotr is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Piotr, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And yeah, so that's well, folks, some comments on this wine. I must say I like it.
And ex-seller 29 euros.
29. Okay, good. Amazing wine. Yeah, good. Yeah, it's just na zdrowie. Na zdrowie. And thank you very much. And now, thank you, Peter. And now, Maximilian from Weingut Gerhard Pimper. So, if you remember last time, hi, Maximilian. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So the last tasting, your wine was the last one, I believe.
Yes.
And yeah, together with Caroline, you get a lot of yeah, your wine got a lot of fans. So let's see what happened today.
Yeah, greetings from my side as well. I'm blessed to be involved here today. My name is Maximilian Pimper from the winery Gerhard Pimper in Göttesbrunn in Carnuntum. We are a family business and cultivate about 12 hectares of vineyards. And our main variety in the winery is Zweigelt. And today I would like to introduce our wine, Ried Rosenberg. But first, something about the single vineyard. The name comes from the wild roses which grow on the hillsides and line the vineyards. It is situated in an elevation of about 215 meters and is surrounded by forest. The Göttlersbrunner Rosenberg is a south-facing site protected against the wind, and the vineyard is impressed by the mixed forest that provide a cooling influence. On the upper part of the slope, you find gravel deposits from the ancient riverbed of the Danube, and in the lower parts of the slope, like calcareous sediments, clay, silt, and sand of the former lake and river landscape. On the top part, we planted Merlot, and further down we have Zweigelt. So our wine, the Rosenberg, is a cuvée from about 85% Zweigelt and about 15% Merlot. The grapes were harvested by hand at the beginning of October 2019. The fermentation starts by natural yeast and at a controlled temperature between about 28 to 30 degrees Celsius, and with gentle punching down and fluting of the mash. And for this wine, we have a mashing stand time of about 3 to 4 weeks. And the subsequent malolactic fermentation took place in 15% new and used small French oak barrels. Clarification is achieved by one-time deduction and natural sedimentation during the 18 months of aging in the barricks. Yeah, the wine year 2019 was a very exciting. The spring was cold and wet towards the end. The soils were well supplied with water and the summer was hot and dry. and we had a steady autumn, but it got cool quite early. And despite some interplay, the weather pattern in 2019 brought perfect conditions for a terrific vintage, I think. Yeah, we currently have no importer in Poland, and our retail price for this wine in the winery is 20 euros.
So
Thank you.
20 euros.
Yes.
Yeah? 20 euros. Okay. And no importer. Okay. Thank you very much. And the fact sheet is properly translated into Polish.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Maximilian. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, this is still Artner, about Artner, some comments. Very French in style. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And well, now, ladies and gentlemen, the last wine, number 11. Number 11, and Weingut Glatze. And Walter. Hello. Good evening.
Hello. Also, good evening from my side. I'm Walter Glatzer from the Glatzer Winery. We are also located in Göttlesbrunn. You heard a lot of all the facts the wineries before. We are also family-owned winery. For our own, we make 33 hectares. And we have 15 hectares. We buy the grapes from the contract winemakers. The works allowed our specifications. 70% we make red, 30% we have white wine. The main grape of the red side is the Zweigelt, Blaufränkisch, St. Laurent, and Merlot. And on the white side, we have Weißburgunder, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Grüne Veltliner. You see here that the children's. They have also have own wine making now, and it helps me at the vinification and the marketing. My daughter is now studying wine business in Geisenheim, and she helps me also in the wine marketing and in the promotion for my wines. Yeah, 2016 we started biologisch farming, and now you see here the Rosenberg. Maximilian told you what's the soil and something more. We are the direct neighbor from Maximilian's vineyard. So we have the same soil and the same land phase, and everything is the same like Maximilian. And Rosenberg, I think it's our best vineyard in the Göttlesbrunn area. It is very specialized for red wines. And so it's south faced, and so we have a lot of sun, and we can harvest very, very ripe grapes. Our Rosenberg is a blend of 50% Blaufränkisch, 25% Zweigelt, and 25% Merlot. Maybe you have one picture back, please. You see the fermentation, the oak fermentation. We have the fermentation for 3 weeks in this small oak fermenter. So we can every part of the grapes and every part of the hill we can make for the fermentation for special. And after 3 weeks fermentation, we age the wine for 12 months in 30% new oak and 70% used barrels. And the barrels have 500 liters. After this year, we make the blend, give the wine back in the barrels, and 5 months later, we make the final blend and stay the wine for 3-4 months in stainless steel for harmonizing. Yeah, here you see a picture from the winery. This is make the fermentation, stainless fermentation for the basic ferment for the basic wines and also for the middle ranges. And the wooden fermenter are reserved for the top charge and the top wines. Yeah. Rosenberg is for me a very impressed wine, have a lot of tannins, but soft tannins. It is a little bit a colder way because the forest is on the backside, and so have a little bit colder influenced from the nights, and to have a lot of fruit in this wine. Zweigl brings the cherry fruit. Merlot brings the full body, and Blaufränkisch is the basic for the tannin and also for the mineralic. This wine have 40% alcohol, and we have 1.5 gram sugar. It's a dry wine, and the aging may be 10, 12, 14 years. The wine will be perfect after this long aging time. Yo, we have no importing bowl now, and the ex-seller price is 25 euros. And I hope it's not the last wine, but it's very fine to make this tasting, and I hope you have fun with this wine and enjoy it.
Well, it's last but not least, as they say, but you know, it's difficult to say which wine would be the last here, as the choice is really fine. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Walter. And well, and yes, any comments? Pure pleasure, lovely cuvée. Yes, that's well, yes, folks. Thank you very much. Perfect. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, dear Austrian and dear Poles. Thank you, and we will see each other in 2 weeks with, let's believe, the Greeks. Yeah, perhaps. And perfect evening. Oh, thank you, Eva, very much. That's very kind of you. I feel, yes. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, good night. Thank you.